Hello, everyone. We are here with Brando Benifei, and it's episode 40 of AI in Real Life. And we are going to talk about spoiler AI Act because today is August 4th. And on August 2nd, the general purpose AI rules came into force. And obviously, we just had to speak about that. And who else would be the most perfect person to talk about it other than you, Brando. So thank you so much for coming on here. And it's a pleasure to have you on. And if you can say a few words about yourself, just to kind of let everyone know why we invited you on and why it's important to talk about this specific topic now.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. My name is Brando Benifei. I am a third term member of the European Parliament. So I've been already some years in the European institutions. And in the past years, I've been engaged in the role of rapporteur for the AI Act. So I was the leading negotiator of the European Parliament on this important file that became a law after strong negotiations with the member states that together with the European Parliament have the power to approve laws that are drafted by the European Commission. So after some years of work, we approved and made it into law this first comprehensive horizontal AI legislation that I'm sure most of those that are listening know about. And in this new mandate, because we just got re-elected 1 year ago, I chair the implementation working group of the AI Act because now it is a law and it's going to be implemented with several phases. And so I oversee the implementation from the Parliament side. And I'm also the chair of the delegation for relations with the United States. So I work on these transatlantic relations in this new mandate. And this is important because also part of the work on the AI and the AI Act and in general AI strategy of the EU entails a dialogue and a form of comparison and I mean actions that involve also the transatlantic part.
Yeah, I mean, and you correctly mentioned the transatlantic relationships and the importance of this. I mean, the governments working together when it comes to AI regulation, as impossible as it may seem sometimes, especially right now. But we'll get back to that. But to begin with, I just wanted to briefly tell me and maybe just explain to me, like, just explain to me what the AI Act is as if I was a 5 year old and why that's the
Yes.
first part of the question. And the second part, why should the American public, the American companies care? Because from various conversations that I have had, and I hear people talking about, people are not as concerned with the AI Act as probably the companies mainly as they should have been, or maybe they shouldn't. What's your take on that?
So the AI Act is a legislation that was conceived to avoid a set of different risks that we see when dealing with AI products entering into our market, and in this case, specifically the EU market. Which risks? Well, first of all, risks for fundamental rights, personal safety, and health, which means that we want to check systems that are used in the workplace or are used for medical activities or for democratic processes. These are just a few examples of so-called sensitive high-risk use cases that the AI Act identifies. And in these cases, we want the system that is put into the market and is then operating in society to be checked in terms of the quality and appropriateness of data that was used to train it, the cybersecurity level, the human control guarantees. So we are developing now standards for that based on the AI Act legislation to actually check that. This is one set of risks. Then we see also existing risks that are too problematic. And so this brings to prohibit some use cases. Obviously, it's a limited number, but they are significant because they deal especially with the risk of mass surveillance. So the abuse of biometric cameras, the abuse of uh, systems that are linked to predictive policing, emotional recognition in workplaces and study places that we think are too intrusive. So these are a few, or for example, if I want to add one more, like manipulative techniques that are of the subliminal kind. So these are examples of use cases that are forbidden by the law. And then we can also list two more types of risks, if I may, that are concern of the AI Act. One is the lack of transparency. So to the risk of having AI generated material that is indistinguishable from uh, uh, um, real one, real content. So uh, we are talking about pictures, videos, or audios. So the issue of deepfakes and its abuse in terms of disinformation, manipulation, hate speech, violence, crimes, etc. And also transparency regarding protection of copyright, so of human creativity from forms of exploitation. And finally, if I may, the fourth kind of risk that is at the center of the AI Act is to avoid forms of oligopolistic attitude by a few big developers. Uh, because we demand transparency towards downstream providers, so downstream businesses and institutions that actually get AI models from the big developers that are developing the most powerful systems. We do not want this to become a context where the few big developers develop oligopolistic rules that prevent a safe allocation of responsibility across the AI chain. So this is also important to underline because there is also this market concentration issue that is behind the philosophy of the AI. And so to conclude, the AI Act is looking at existing risks, also to exclude systems that do not present very significant risks, and so to avoid over-regulating them. But we, as you know, the European approach is not to act ex post with actions that take place after damage emerges, but rather we want to work on ex ante prevention, and this is, in fact, what we do with the AI. It doesn't affect research or research and development. It's only applicable when an AI project becomes a product that enters the market. Why it's important for the American public? Well, because first of all, it can deliver some form of Brussels effect in terms of adapting the way companies act also in US. Maybe it will not affect how the administration will act. We can talk more about that if you want, but in fact, there is not a very good reaction today by the administration that today governs the US on this topic. But the other very important thing is this is not a legislation for European companies. This is a legislation for any company that wants to sell its products in the European market. So an American AI company, like any AI company in the world that wants to sell a product in the EU, it needs to follow the rules of the AI Act when they are applicable. I say when they are applicable because also the implementation will still take time. So it's not all together now, but it's a bit, um, I mean, elongated in time. It will take some time for it to be fully applicable, but it will be applied also to any company, including US companies that want to sell their products in the EU.
So let's talk about the general purpose AI code of practice that was published last month, and the EU Commission came up with the template to for companies to provide data disclosure information and other types of information. So, in your opinion, as some of the major companies have already started to sign up to the code of practice, and they are purely voluntary. A side note, it's not any type of regulation in any shape form. So, as these companies have started to sign up, what do you see? What's the way forward? What's going to be the play of the EU Commission or EU Parliament if the uptake won't be as expected? I would say if only some of the companies, and we don't have the full list yet of everyone who signed up, but they will be published later. I believe Meta so far it's the only one of the big tech AI companies that haven't as a matter of fact, signed up to the code of practice. But the likes of OpenAI and Anthropic, Mistral, and others have. So coming back to the question, if the uptake is not as expected, is will there be some sort of I don't know push to adopt the at least some of the key elements of the code of practice for the companies, or is there something
Yeah.
in the
So,
works?
yeah. So we need to clarify first that although the code of practice is voluntary, it's a soft law component that has been foreseen by the AI Act to develop a code of practices that are linked to a specific obligation that is for the developers of very powerful general purpose AI models. And for those developers that develop models that are recognized to be by the AI Act having systemic risks, dealing with their unpredictability, their versatility, their power in terms of computational capabilities and also reach and different characteristics. Well, for those developers, they need to implement this systemic risk mitigation. That is foreseen by the European AI Act, so by the legislation, through this code of practice that was developed by a co-legislation process by involving the developers themselves and academia and civil society. So it's true that it's a soft law that is voluntary, but it's the standard way to implement obligations that are based on the EU AI Act for systemic risk of very powerful models. That's why you see so many signing, in my view, most of the big companies that develop these powerful models, because they know that if they don't follow this protocol that is truly, as you said, a voluntary code of practice, they will need to demonstrate anyway in a different way that they follow the rules on systemic risk based on the AI Act. So we see the code of practice as a facilitation for the companies to have a way to show their commitment in preventing and mitigating the systemic. But if they do not follow that, they do not sign, or the way they implement it is not if not serious, then they will need anyway to show that um, um, they are respecting the obligations of the AI Act on the systemic risk. So what happens if this uptake, for various reasons, is not satisfied? Well, we have an escape clause on that. We do have the option to actually codify completely these obligations, to abandon this kind of co-legislative process that we have taken, to in fact involve the developers themselves in developing this code, and in fact just codify these obligations. We could do that, and we will evaluate that if it seems that this way of doing things that is more collaborative, we could say, is not delivering in terms of risk mitigation.
So yeah, because the reason I was asking is since the code of practice is voluntary, uh, some of the companies are picking and choosing, so to speak, which parts of the code to sign up to. For example, XAI, they only signed up to safety and security part of the code. And again, which comes down to the whole idea of the code of practice, right? Is it, I mean, it only has the value in its entirety, or at this point, it's will get them any way we can get them. It's as at least they sign something. Is this the kind of mentality you
This
would
is a good,
Mhm.
well, this is a good question because obviously we prefer that there is a partial signing instead of no signing of anything, because this approach of the code of practice is needed to streamline and standardize the way of dealing with these systemic risks. But um, the challenge is all in the hands today of the AI office of the European Commission, because they will need to enforce the code for the part that is not signed by asking for alternative methods of delivering in terms of systemic risk mitigation. So for the European Commission, it will be a challenge, and we need to strengthen the AI office as much as possible so that it could confront the developers where they do not follow properly the code of practice, or they simply refuse to follow it, and then demand so for alternative ways of showing their commitment for mitigating systemic risk.
Yeah, understandable. And it's good that it was already foreseen to that extent that some of the companies will start, again, picking and choosing which part is the best to sign. Um, what about the critics of the code of practice? Because obviously, as with every piece of AI regulation and legislation these days, there are quite a few. But I wanted to touch on specifically the creative sector. A lot of musicians, authors, and publishers, they've been very critical in terms of they argue there's not enough protection of their rights in the code. They need some real protections, real licensing, and not just opt-out mechanisms and data summaries. So what would your response be to
Yeah.
those people? Mhm.
Well, well, for sure, this is one of the most difficult topics. In fact, if you look at the pick and choose, it seems that the copyright transparency part is the one that is the least liked by the big developers. And I have to say it was a very difficult part to negotiate on, because there was a lot of pressure on the government when we worked on the original AI Act to actually abandon all these approach on transparency that simply want to make it possible for the existing copyright laws, it's not changing them, to be applied correctly in the context of the AI development, which is obviously very specific. Um, so the as you said, the creative sector is feeling that they are not protected enough. while the developers, they think this is too extreme and it's asking them too much. So they are very far away positions. I have to say, I think we got a good result in the end because the final code compared to the earlier draft, the third draft was very much reducing to best efforts the copyright obligations. Now the text is more solid. I have to say also the creative sector recognized it. But then now the important thing is how we apply it. I have to say I want to clarify that I don't think we should hinder innovation and the use of materials to train AI. I think that's important that we do not take a too prohibition-based approach that is limiting this. But we need to respect the rights of the right holders, and we need to implement not only the opt-out, but a credible and solid disclosure of the data that has been actually used so that there can be copyright protection in the way that we consider it sufficient in Europe. Because clearly there are also different approaches. The copyright approach on AI that we see in US is quite different, but in EU we want our approach to be applicable.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's on everybody's minds when it comes to the creative sector. And I was on two working groups of the EU, the General Purpose AI Code of Practice. One of them was the copyright, and there was a lot of, I would say, heated debate between the participants when it came to the drafting and all the processes, and people were voicing their pretty much valid concerns that, for example, robot.txt is not something that's working quite well, especially in this day and age when AI companies just scraping all the internet, disregarding that altogether. So people are looking for protections, and some assurances, I would say, that even if scraped, that there will be some sort of remuneration or accountability, I would say. So yeah, a lot of very, very interesting topics to follow. Let's talk about the AI Act simplification. There were some rumors that are not rumors anymore. I believe that there are some talks right now about how to I don't know, just streamline some of the compliance procedures, and just for the companies to get better adjusted, I would say, to the AI Act and how to comply and things to do, because there's a massive piece of AI legislation. It obviously overlaps with some of the existing existing EU laws, GDPR, Digital Markets Acts, Digital Services Acts, and other laws. What's the latest on that, I would say, in terms of the simplification procedures and where things are going, and how tangible it even is, to simplify something as complex as the AI Act?
Yeah. Well, I think this simplification agenda is a challenge that has to be taken seriously, on which we need to work with some rationality. Because it's true that we have overlap, that we have certain duplication of compliance procedures, and that with the AI development ongoing and the changes that we see in the innovation landscape, a form of check of the fitness of this legislation is needed. And think that some form of simplification could be very useful. For example, if we look at the way the data market is existing in Europe and how we can make access to data uh, easier without renouncing to our principles. This means that we need to work to make life easier for small and medium-sized enterprises, that we need to check more precisely the timing of the various entry into force so that they are really aligned on what is feasible. And so I am not at all resistant to a discussion on this. What I will not support, and I'm sure many with me in the parliament, is a deregulative approach to make someone happy, maybe on the other side of the Atlantic, because we have been seeing that the pressure coming from the US administration on certain legislation of the EU, for example, not only on the digital, but also on simple issues like agricultural rules that are linked to sanitary and phytosanitary standards, but on the digital issues for the DSA, GDPR, AIS, DMA, we have seen a lot of pressure. So I think that we cannot accept this kind of approach because we are not questioning or discussing US legislation, and this should not happen on the other way around. But I am absolutely available in the discussion with the Commission that will start in the autumn to work to simplify correctly in a logic way, in a functional way, not in a way that contradicts our principles. And I'm sure we will work on that just after the summer.
Thanks for this. I would hope inside information as well. Nobody yet knows about it. But let's quickly talk about the latest addition to already, which is already a lot of documentation that came out of the EU Commission the end of June. So the latest data disclosure template that just dropped on June 24th. And as always, a lot of opinions out there, a lot of critics when it comes to disclosing enough enough information, enough data about a company. So AI developers could disagree with the commission's view that it balances out, transparency and protection of trade secrets. But you know, I'm pretty sure there will be some sort of pushback when AI developers and companies are seeing this template for the first time, which is, by the way, a mandatory tool. So you have to use that when you want to comply. And
Yeah.
there are also arguments that that's where AI Act oversteps when it comes to protection of trade secrets by AI developers and AI companies and the like. So what's your take on that? What would your response to them be? Should they be worried?
Well, my answer is that, as I said earlier, on this topic, you see very different opinions. And in fact, you see the organizations dealing with digital rights or the creative sector or the big developers that have all of them different views that are very much contradicting each other. I think that as a politician, I should be pragmatic on this. This is what we have now. This is what we can work on now. Revision work this way in a way that balances the need to avoid creators' exploitation and freedom to innovate by the companies. We will evaluate that and we will see what the next steps we will need to take.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. And I see that we have, as you warned, we might have some connection problems here. Um, so my final question
Now I
would
can
be,
hear.
and I'll try, yeah, finally. So for my final question, you can hear me. So I'm very interested in your take. So we're already 1 year in from the moment the AI Act became the law. And knowing everything that you know today, would there be something that you would have done differently during the negotiation stage or during the drafting stage? Anything that comes to your mind. So today, so looking back, I would say, is there something that you would have done differently? I can hear you and see you. That was the perfect final question. And there's no connection. So fitting. So fitting. Perks of going live. Some things just bound to happen, as usual. I'm just gonna fill in this void while Brando is reconnecting, I guess. Just will be talking to myself. Things we have to do. So let's hopefully get Brando back. I really hope he's gonna make it back to our studio because I really wanted him to answer my final question because you know that's how just human mind works, right? When you know something today in retrospect, some things seem easier. Yes, I got you back.
Yes, just wait
My,
with the audio. One moment. Okay.
Okay, yes,
I
I'm
got you
back.
back for my final question.
Yes,
Did you want me to repeat it, or you heard what I said? Because I was like, it's very
yes,
fitting
please.
that I asked my final question. You just disappeared on me.
No, I didn't hear it. No, no, you need to repeat it. You need to repeat it.
Oh, 100% I will. So my final question was: so knowing everything that you know today, and it's been already a year since the AI Act became the law. Would you have done anything differently during the negotiation stage or the drafting stage? Is there something that you think you could have done differently?
Well, in my opinion, we needed quite a bold legislation that would take some strong stances. For example, choosing to prohibit certain very problematic and dangerous use cases of AI, like subliminal manipulation, abuse of biometric cameras, etc. And we needed to identify also the risk coming from systemic uh, models, these ones that are very powerful. I'm saying this because this was our effort to do our best with the political balance that we have to find with the government and with the European Commission. I want to be frank, I think that this new European Commission might have been less daring to have such a comprehensive legislation. The climate has changed. So at the time, that was a bold move, and I think we delivered probably the most advanced proposal in terms of right protection and comprehensive risk classification and mitigation that we could get. So, in my view, this is really the most advanced legislation if your objective was, and this was my objective in my case, to get a legislation that can actually protect you from risk so we can build more trust. Because in the end, the objective is to build the trust around the adoption of AI systems, knowing that there is a legislation that protects you from unnecessary risk. Obviously, I can tell you that while we develop the rules, I would have hoped that the Commission, with the government, would have started already some time ago, not doing it only now, a strong delivery on competitiveness agenda in terms of increasing access to capital for AI startups, increasing availability of good infrastructure for training and development. These are the issues that many startups that want to become scale-ups in Europe are posing to us. And I think that now government and the commission with the level of budgetary strength it has, so it's only up to some level because we also need the national budgets and national political will to deliver because we are not a federation. I am a European federalist, but the European Union is not a federation, so you really need for this kind of endeavors a strong commitment by the member states too. I would have hoped that while we work on the legislation, this kind of commitment on the AI industrial policy would have been stronger from the beginning. Now it's being developed, but yes, maybe more than changing something on the AI Act, I would have said at the time we should have been more aggressive, more active, more quick on delivering also a AI industrial policy agenda that would support more the AI ecosystem in Europe.
Brando Benifei, thank you so much. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you.
And, you know, it was
Thank you.
very good to receive, you know, the information from the first source, so to speak. And again, we definitely are going to see how everything plays out because the enforcement starts, at
Yeah.
least for the time being, it starts the next year on August 2nd of 2026. So we still have some time between that. So companies, again, as always,
Yeah.
don't take anything lightly. Prepare and please, please, please read the AI Act.
Yes.
It's very, very good reading time if you have nothing to do with your August anyway. So thank you so much, Brando, and I hope I'll see you
Thank you. Thank you very much.
next time.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone.